Try this right now. Stand up, look down at yourself and whatever you're wearing. Can you find your waist? Not guess where it is, actually see it. If the answer is no, keep reading, because that's not a dress problem you can fix with a different size. It's a specific mistake almost every petite woman makes without knowing she's making it. Here's what nobody tells you in the store. A dress that looks elegant on the hanger, styled on a mannequin built 5 inches taller than you, can turn into a shapeless column the second it's actually on your body. Not because the dress is wrong, because 6 specific details on it were never built with your proportions in mind. You've felt this before. You put on something you loved in the fitting room mirror, and somewhere between the store and the dinner you were dressing for, it started to feel like you were wearing a sack instead of a dress. That wasn't your imagination. That was math. Here's the actual reason it happens so consistently. Dress patterns get built the same way every other garment does. One size gets designed at one height, and every other size gets mathematically scaled from that single reference point. Width changes with your size. Length almost never does. A size 8 petite and a size 8 regular can share the exact same waist-to-hem measurement, even though nothing about your torso length has anything in common with someone 5 inches taller. We're going through 6 of these details today: the length that's cutting your leg at the worst possible point, the missing waistline, the sleeve swallowing your arm, the print too big for your frame, the fabric standing away from your body like a tent instead of moving with it. And one test at the end, 30 seconds in front of a mirror, that tells you before you ever buy anything whether a dress is actually built for you or just built to look good on a hanger. None of these 6 require alterations, a personal shopper, or a bigger budget. Every single one is something you can check with your own eyes in under a minute, either in a fitting room or standing in front of your own closet tonight. But here's what changes everything about number 1. It isn't about the dress at all. It's about where you're looking when you check. Let's start with the detail doing the most damage of all 6, and it's usually the first thing wrong before you even notice anything else. Number 6, the hem landing at the worst possible point. A dress that hits mid-calf gets called flattering more than almost any other length. And on plenty of bodies, it genuinely is. Here's what nobody explains. Mid-calf isn't one fixed measurement. It's wherever the hem happens to land on the specific leg wearing it. And on a shorter leg, that exact landing point often lines up precisely with the widest part of the calf. The one spot on your entire leg where a horizontal line does the most visual damage. Think about what a horizontal line actually does to a vertical shape. It stops the eye. It says this is where you end, right at the point your leg is widest. 2 lengths avoid this entirely. A hem that lands just below the knee, before the calf starts to widen, or a hem that drops considerably lower, past the widest point entirely, toward the ankle. There's a third option worth knowing if you genuinely love a mid-length silhouette and don't want to give it up entirely. A dress with a front slit, even a modest one, breaks that solid horizontal line even when the hem itself still lands at the widest point, because the eye now has a vertical opening to travel along instead of one unbroken stop sign across your leg. Check this yourself. Stand in a full-length mirror. Look at exactly where the hem sits relative to your own calf. If it's landing right at the widest part, that dress is working against your leg line every single time you wear it, regardless of the color, the print, or how good the top half looks. This is the detail almost nobody in a store thinks to check, because mid-calf sounds like a safe, universal answer. It was never universal. It was calculated for someone taller. Run this test the next time you're actually shopping, not just at home in front of your own mirror. Fitting room lighting and a hurried glance can make almost any length look acceptable for the few seconds you're standing there deciding. Number 5, the missing waist. Go back to the question we opened with. Can you find your waist in that dress? Most dresses marketed as effortless or relaxed skip waist definition entirely, letting the fabric fall in one straight column from shoulder to hem. On a taller frame, that column has length to spare. It reads as minimalist, even elegant. On a shorter frame, that same column eats up nearly your entire visible height in one undifferentiated block. There's no waist to mark where your torso ends and your legs begin. Your whole body reads as one shape instead of two proportioned sections. This is the actual mechanism behind the word frumpy. It's rarely about the dress being unflattering in isolation. It's about the complete absence of a waistline, which is the single strongest tool a dress has for creating proportion in the first place. There's a version of this mistake that catches even women who think they've avoided it. A dress with a waist seam that's still cut too loosely at that seam doesn't actually create definition. It just adds a horizontal line without the shape underneath it doing any real work. A waistline only counts if it's actually cinching or gently following your body at that point, not simply marking a spot with a seam and moving on. The fix isn't buying a fitted dress if that's not your style. It's adding definition somewhere, a thin belt at your natural waist, a wrap style that ties, even a dress with a subtle seam at the smallest point of your torso. Try this. Put on a dress you already own that feels shapeless. Add a thin belt at your natural waist and look again. That's not a different dress. That's the same dress with one missing element restored. You can run the same test on a dress in the store before you ever buy it. Bring your own thin belt with you. Try it on underneath one you're considering, and you'll know within seconds whether that particular style genuinely needs waist definition or whether it was already working fine without it. We fixed the bottom of the silhouette. We just fixed the middle. Here's the detail hiding at the very top that undoes both if you get it wrong. Number 4. The sleeve swallowing your arm. Puffed sleeves, statement sleeves, dramatic bell sleeves, they're everywhere right now, and on the right frame, they're genuinely beautiful. Here's the part nobody mentions when a sleeve trend goes viral. That volume was designed to be proportional to the body wearing it. A statement sleeve built for an average frame doesn't get smaller for a smaller arm. It stays exactly the same size, which means on a petite frame it can end up wider than your actual shoulder, adding bulk at the one point where you want your silhouette narrowing, not expanding. The result reads top-heavy. Your whole upper body looks wider than your actual proportions, and everything below it, the waist we just fixed, the leg length we just fixed, gets visually overwhelmed by what's happening at the shoulder. This doesn't mean giving up dramatic sleeves entirely. It means checking scale specifically. A sleeve with volume concentrated at the wrist instead of the shoulder, or a moderate puff rather than a dramatic one, gets the same aesthetic without the same visual weight. There's a simple styling workaround if you already own a dress with an oversized sleeve you love. Pushing the sleeve up slightly on the forearm so some of the volume gathers rather than hanging at full width immediately narrows the silhouette without altering the dress itself. Here's the check. Look at yourself from the front. If your sleeve extends visibly past your actual shoulder line, that's added width you didn't choose on purpose. The trend chose it for you. There's one more thing worth knowing before you write off a sleeve style entirely. The same volume that overwhelms on a solid color dress can read very differently on a printed one, where the eye already has other detail to travel across instead of resting entirely on the width of the shoulder. 4 details in, every one of them lives on the dress itself. The next one is different. It's not about cut at all. Number 3, the print too big to wear. A bold floral print looks stunning on a hanger, on a taller model, in a photo shot from 6 feet away. Put that exact same print on a smaller frame, and something changes. The print doesn't shrink to match your proportions. The individual flowers, the repeat pattern, all of it stays the same physical size, which means fewer full repeats fit across your body, and the print starts to feel like it's wearing you instead of the other way around. Oh. This is scale, not taste. A large-scale print genuinely can work on a petite frame. It just needs different handling than a small-scale one does. The simplest fix is choosing prints scaled to your actual size. Smaller florals, finer stripes, tighter geometric repeats, so multiple full patterns fit comfortably across your frame instead of one oversized motif dominating it. If you love a bold, large-scale print and genuinely don't want to give it up, look for it concentrated in one section of the dress rather than covering the entire thing. A printed bodice with a solid skirt, for example, so the scale reads as a deliberate accent instead of an overwhelming whole. There's a second way this shows up that has nothing to do with florals specifically. Wide horizontal stripes do the exact same thing a large repeat print does. They were spaced for a wider, taller body, and on a narrower frame, fewer full stripes fit across you, which visually adds width rather than the slimming effect stripes are supposed to create. Thin vertical stripes spaced closer together do the opposite job entirely. Check any print by holding the fabric up and stepping back several feet. If you can only make out one or two full pattern repeats across the width of the dress, that print was scaled for a bigger body than yours. This applies to more than just dresses, too. The same scale test works on a blouse, a skirt, even a scarf, anything patterned that you're considering buying. Once you start checking scale instead of just liking a print on site, you'll notice how often the print itself was genuinely never the problem. The size of it was. We're halfway through and everything so far has lived on the outside of the dress. The next one is about what's happening underneath the fabric, and it can undo 3 of the fixes we've already covered. Number 2, the fabric standing away from you. Stiff fabric feels structured. It feels like it's doing something for your silhouette. On a petite frame specifically, it often does the opposite. Stiff, heavy fabric doesn't skim your body. It stands away from it, holding its own shape rather than yours. That creates what stylists call the tent effect. The dress becomes a shape independent of your actual body, and on a smaller frame, that independent shape reads as considerably larger than you actually are. This is why the exact same dress can look sculptural on one body and shapeless on another. It's rarely the cut. It's almost always the fabric behind the cut. What you want instead is fabric with drape, something that moves with your body rather than holding its own architecture regardless of what's underneath it. Silk, rayon, a soft-washed cotton, a lightweight wool blend. These fall in one continuous line instead of standing off at an angle from your actual shape. There's a lining factor almost nobody thinks to check too. A beautifully draping outer fabric paired with a stiff, structured lining underneath can still create the same tent effect, because the lining is what actually holds the shape against your body all day. If a dress feels soft to the touch but stands away from you when you put it on, the lining is often the real culprit, not the visible fabric. Here's the test, and it takes 5 seconds in any store. Hold the fabric over the back of your hand. If it falls smoothly, draping over your knuckles like water, that's a fabric working with you. If it holds a stiff shape, sticking out rather than falling, put it back. This one test alone eliminates more wrong choices than reading a fabric content label ever will. A dress can be 100% silk and still be woven stiff enough to tent. The fiber name on the tag tells you what it's made of. Only your own hand tells you how it actually behaves. 5 details down. Every one of them you can check on the dress itself before you ever put it on. The 6th isn't like that at all. Number 1. You've been finding your waist in the wrong place. Remember the question from the very beginning. Can you find your waist? Here's what almost every petite woman gets backward when she tries to answer that. She looks for where a dress says her waist is, the seam, the belt line, wherever the designer decided to put the definition. She doesn't check whether that's actually where her own waist sits. Those 2 things are not always the same point. A dress designed around an average torso length places its waistline at an average spot. On a shorter torso, that spot can land noticeably above or below your own natural waist, which means even a dress with beautiful waist definition can be defining the wrong waist entirely. Here's the test. Find your actual natural waist first. Independent of any garment, the narrowest point of your torso, usually just above your belly button. Then put on the dress and check where its waistline actually falls relative to that point, not relative to where the dress assumes it should be. If the dress's waistline sits above your natural waist, it's shortening your torso and lengthening your hip line in a way that throws off your entire proportion. If it sits below, it's doing the reverse, making your torso look longer than it is and compressing everything beneath it. Once you know your own number, this test takes seconds every single time you shop, on any dress, in any store, regardless of what the size tag or the styling on the mannequin tries to tell you. You stop trusting the dress to know your body and start checking it against a measurement you already know. This single check explains more than any other detail on this list. You can fix the hem, the sleeve, the print, the fabric, and still feel like something's off, because the one thing actually defining your shape was never aligned with your body to begin with. That's the part almost nobody explains, and it's exactly why so many petite women end up with a closet full of dresses that are each individually well-made and still somehow never quite right. It was never one bad decision. It was one measurement nobody ever taught them to check first. Bonus detail, your own waist measurement. Before we wrap up, one thing worth remembering that ties directly into everything else. Once you know where your own natural waist sits, you can apply it to belts, to wrap styles, to any dress at all, not just the ones on this list. That single measurement becomes the one thing you check first every time before anything else about the dress. Write it down if you genuinely have to. Not the dress size, the actual measurement in inches from the floor to your own natural waistline. It's the one number that outlasts every single trend on this entire list. Conclusion: you were never frumpy. You were wearing dresses built for a torso length that wasn't yours. Hem landing on the widest point of your calf, a missing waistline, a sleeve wider than your shoulder, a print scaled for a bigger frame, fabric standing away from your body instead of moving with it, and underneath every one of those, a waistline that was never actually aligned with your own. Fix the first 5 and you'll notice a difference. Fix the 6th and you'll understand why the other 5 mattered in the first place. That's the order these things actually work in, even though it's the opposite order most of us learn them. None of this was ever about your body needing to change. It was about 6 details that were never built around it in the first place, and one measurement that fixes all 6 at once the moment you actually know it. That's the whole shift, from blaming your body to checking the garment. Which of these have you been living with without realizing it for years without ever quite knowing why? Tell me in the comments. And if you've never actually checked where your own natural waist sits, do it today, before you buy another single dress. It's the one measurement that makes every other fix on this entire list actually work.